From the most anticipated super fight in recent years to a crafty clause that could have swung the bout, this is what Conor McGregor really said to Ryan Garcia. After his loss to Gervonta, Davis revealed. The sport of boxing has taken a hit in recent years, as other rising organizations, such as the UFC, put combat sports like mixed martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the map. Rival promotions and competing networks, along with the desire to keep a boxer's record perfectly undefeated, often get in the way of those super fights that boxing fans really want to see. The sport of boxing as a whole has suffered as a result, but Garcia and Davis set a precedent with their bout that might change the tide. Two undefeated superstars of the sport, both under the age of 30, putting it all on the line to face each other while they're actually in their prime. It's practically unheard of these days. But that's exactly what the young boxers gave us, and their gamble paid off. Promoted as the fight that it doesn't get any better than this, Davis and Garcia met on the 22nd of April, 2023, at the T-Mobile Arena in Paradise, Nevada. The pair walked out to a sold-out crowd of 20,842 boxing fans, the fifth largest gate in Las Vegas history. Domestically, the fight sold more than a whopping 1.2 million pay-per-views. Not bad for a couple young superstars. Both Garcia and Davis represent a new era of boxers, able to make super fights based on their savvy social media promotion, rather than their bulletproof accomplishments in the sport. It's arguable that in facing each other, they took on the toughest fight of their careers, and both fighters had more than 20 wins to their name going into this bout. Gervonta "Tank" Davis, the tattoo-covered 28-year-old, has held multiple world championships across 3 weight classes, knocking out more than 90% of his opponents in brutal fashion. The guy may be short, standing at only 5 feet and 5.5 inches, but he sure does pack a punch. He's propagated a bit of thug image both through words and actions, having had numerous run-ins with the law, but the Baltimore native has definitely cemented himself as a draw for boxing fans, having generated an average of 200,000 pay-per-view buys for his last 5 fights before Garcia. Ryan is definitely no slouch when it comes to social media promotion either. With more than 10 million Instagram followers, the 24-year-old has built a name for himself as a Mexican-American heartthrob with some deadly skills. He's also got a penchant for putting his opponents to sleep, having knocked out more than 80% of his competition. Viral videos of the boxer punching pads and bags at lightning speed can be found littered across the internet, and even non-boxing fans have probably come across the young superstar. Going into their bout, the two were undefeated, and that precious 0 on the record of a boxer is all too often protected by fighting unworthy competition. Davis and Garcia did the opposite, overcoming rival promotions and competing networks to make their fight happen. So you've got to respect them for that at least. The two met at a catchweight of 136 pounds, arguably a risk for the taller Ryan, who had only recently moved up to super lightweight. After a cautious first round, Garcia became more aggressive in the second, trying to unleash his signature left hook, but the 24-year-old would end up paying for it when Davis caught him with a left hook of his own, sending him to the ground. Ryan recovered but was notably less aggressive afterwards. In the 6th round, he seemed to gain more confidence, but ultimately Gervonta's age, power, and experience won out when he landed a brutal body shot in the 7th round, forcing Ryan to take a knee and adding another knockout to his undefeated record. Following the bout, it seems like the two have gained a lot of respect for one another, with Garcia saying, "Tank is a great fighter. I take my hat off to him," and Davis admitting that he was excited to be a part of the event. Gervonta has used his victory to declare himself the face of boxing. But if that's the case, what's next for the southpaw? Some would argue that the next step in his career should be the most difficult, at least on paper, meeting one of the highest-ranked, more established 135-pounders. Names like Devin Haney, Vasily Lomachenko, Frank Martin, or even a rematch with Isaac Cruz have been thrown around. Whoever his next opponent, it will have to be a tough matchup in order to cement his reputation as one of the best pound-for-pound boxers in the world. As for Garcia, he's announced that he'll be making a return to 140 pounds, where his taller frame can fill out better. It's likely that he'll take a tune-up fight with the likes of Jose Zepeda before making a move against the more elite competition in that division. The 24-year-old may have sullied his undefeated record, but it's still early enough in his career that he can learn and make adjustments. Some boxing fans would argue that the taller Garcia was at a disadvantage during the fight against Davis, and it's something that former UFC champion Conor McGregor mentioned when he ran into Ryan after the fight. McGregor, who's been known to frequent live sporting events, visited Garcia's dressing room following his loss, and the UFC legend had some words of encouragement for the American. He said, "You are the two biggest names in the division. I want to see it again. I want to see it again now. And I want to see it with no rehydration clause." This is the disadvantage that, some would argue, affected Garcia's performance. The former double champion also complimented the young boxer, saying, "You're the future." The rehydration clause mentioned by McGregor was a clause in the contract between Davis and Garcia. Usually fighters weigh in a day before the fight, and when they step into the ring a day later, they've rehydrated back to their natural weight, which is usually much higher.
I said 155 from the beginning.
You didn't take 155 though. You did not take 155.
I did too. Initially,
You didn't take 155, Nick.
Yes, I did.
A rehydration clause sets a limit on the weight the fighter can be on the actual day of the fight. And in this case, Garcia and Davis were limited to a maximum of 146 pounds. This, of course, worked in favor of the smaller Gervonta, being almost 5 inches shorter than Ryan, if he'd been allowed to rehydrate fully. It's arguable that Garcia would have performed better during their much-anticipated grudge match. McGregor himself is no stranger to the world of boxing, having branched out in 2017 to fight arguably one of the best boxers in history, Floyd Money Mayweather. The UFC star reportedly made more than $100 million for the fight, and since then, there's been speculation as to whether he'll return to the ring. Back in 2022, Mayweather himself said that a rematch with McGregor was in the pipeline for the following year, but since then, no updates have been given. Conor told Sky Sports News that he would definitely grace the ring again before retiring. But in 2023, the Irishman seems to have changed his tune. Having been booked to fight Michael Chandler, McGregor sat down with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour. When asked if he had any interest in free agency, the former double champion said, "For me, the UFC is the pinnacle, and it's the company that I love. It's the company I wish to be with for the rest of my career." Judging by that, it seems unlikely that Conor is seriously considering a return to boxing anytime soon, despite the chance of another huge payday. Davis vs. Garcia may not go down as the best fight in boxing history, but it's definitely given boxing a much-needed boost in the eyes of fans, who've finally gotten to see a matchup between two of their favorite boxers, both in their prime. It remains to be seen who each of them will fight next, but there's definitely a chance that the two could face each other again in the future, as McGregor said, perhaps next time without a rehydration clause in the contract. So from the most anticipated super fight in recent years to a crafty clause that could have swung the bout, that was what Conor McGregor really said to Ryan Garcia after his loss to Gervonta Davis.